Think of the most successful person you know, like the one with the flawless career trajectory, the 5-year plan mapped out to the decimal.
Right, the perfectly curated life.
Exactly. The solid bank account, the great house, all of it. Well, what if I told you that their greatest asset, like their incredibly forward-thinking, strategic mind, is actually the exact mechanism actively destroying their happiness?
It is just this massive, counterintuitive paradox. And honestly, it's the core of what we're analyzing today.
Yeah, the framework we were exploring suggests that things like anxiety, chronic fear, that baseline exhaustion,
That endless loop of overthinking, yeah.
right, it suggests those aren't necessarily symptoms of a life that is falling apart. For a lot of highly capable people, those are simply the symptoms of being completely trapped,
Trapped inside yesterday, or trapped inside tomorrow.
which is the exact mission of our deep dives today into a really compelling source text called The Architecture of Presence. We are unpacking this material specifically for those of you out there navigating high-pressure careers.
Because it's so common, right? We're going to look at the psychological mechanics of why we constantly postpone our own lives.
Oh, for sure. And we'll break down the totally mundane ways we mentally check out of our reality. And, most importantly, extract 3 concrete, neurologically backed ways to stay present daily.
To really ground these concepts, I think we should start with the foundation of this idea. It rests on a specific archetype from the text.
Right, the story of the professional who, by all conventional external metrics, had entirely made it.
Exactly. If you looked at his life from the outside, the architecture was perfect. The foundation was solid. The roof didn't leak.
But internally, I mean, he was walking around inside his own life feeling terrified and just chronically overwhelmed.
Because he was convinced the house was going to collapse tomorrow. Or, he was agonizing over a scratch on the floorboards from 5 years ago.
Yeah. He had the goals, the plans, the drive. But his internal dialogue was built entirely on this conditional happiness.
Always waiting for the next thing.
Right. He operated on this daily mantra, like, when I finally hit this revenue target, well, then I'll be happy.
When I get this promotion, then I'll feel peace.
When life becomes just a little bit easier and this massive project is done, then I'll actually enjoy my weekend.
Which is really the ultimate deferred maintenance of the soul. And what's fascinating here is the profound irony, the real turn in his trajectory.
The part where he actually gets what he wants.
Right. Years passed, and his life did improve. He hit those targets. The external conditions he demanded for his happiness were actually met.
But his internal reality didn't change at all.
Not one bit. His physical body was existing in the present, but his consciousness was living entirely somewhere else.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to look at the underlying mechanics of why busy professionals fall into this exact trap.
Yeah, it's so incredibly common.
Why do the people who are seemingly the most put together constantly defer their lives to later?
Well, the psychology behind it is what we call the arrival fallacy. Highly ambitious people operate under this illusion that once we reach a certain goal, we will reach enduring happiness.
Like reaching the summit of the mountain.
Exactly. But neurologically, the dopamine hit we get is actually linked to the pursuit of the goal, not the attainment of it.
So the brain is actually rewarding the chase, not the finish line?
Precisely. Once you achieve the goal, that dopamine drops. You feel a brief spike of relief, followed by this totally unexpected emptiness.
Oh, wow. So you just feel kind of hollow.
Yeah, and because your brain is conditioned to seek that forward momentum, it immediately creates a new, further goal to fix that empty feeling.
Just move the goalposts on you.
Exactly. For this man in the story, the past had become a prison of analyzed mistakes, and the future was a perpetual treadmill of fear and anticipation.
Leaving the present totally empty.
Right. The present moment, which was the only tangible reality he actually possessed, was entirely ignored because his brain was optimizing for tomorrow.
Okay, but wait. I have to push back on this on behalf of our ambitious listeners.
Sure, go for it.
If we don't focus on the future, how do we actually advance? I mean, aren't professionals required to be forward-thinking?
That's a fair point.
Like if I'm leading a team or managing a major portfolio, I can't just blissfully ignore Q3 because I'm, living in the present.
Yeah.
If we just stop looking ahead, don't we fail?
That is easily the most common hesitation high achievers have with the concept of presence. And it really comes down to a misunderstanding of what presence actually is.
Okay, Gauss.
The framework we're analyzing isn't arguing that setting goals or strategic planning is inherently bad. The dysfunction happens when you miss your actual life while you are preparing for life.
Missing the moment while setting up the next one.
Right. Think of it like this. It's the difference between looking at a map to plan your route and driving your car down the highway while staring entirely at the map instead of looking through the windshield.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. One helps you navigate effectively, and the other absolutely guarantees a crash.
Exactly. When you are looking at the map, you are using the future as a tool. But when you stare at the map while driving, your entire identity and capacity for awareness are held hostage by a future condition.
You aren't driving. You're just anticipating the destination.
Right. The suffering begins when we conflate planning for tomorrow with worrying about tomorrow. Planning is a finite action. Worrying is an infinite loop.
That is a phenomenal distinction. Driving while staring at the map perfectly explains the mechanism of the dysfunction. We physically show up, but cognitively we are miles down the road.
Completely checked out.
Which brings us to the symptoms. Because if living in the future is the root of the problem, we need to identify what this mental absence actually looks like in the trenches of everyday life.
And the examples given in the source are incredibly mundane.
They are mundane, but they are so universal. I mean, we mentally escape our lives in the most ordinary moments, worrying about a deliverable while eating dinner with your family.
Or overthinking a conversation from yesterday while trying to fall asleep.
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the sheer absurdity of how we check out is actually tied to our neurobiology.
It's hardwired.
Right. When we miss a beautiful sunset because our mind is chewing on a logistical problem, or we miss a moment of genuine human connection because we are mentally drafting an email, we aren't just being rude or distracted.
No, not at all.
Our brains are defaulting to a specific operating system.
You're referring to the default mode network, right? The DMN.
Exactly.
Yeah, when your brain is not actively engaged in a focused, demanding task, like when you're eating or commuting or taking a shower, the DMN kicks in.
It's like the brain screensaver.
Exactly. For a hunter-gatherer, the DMN might wander to thoughts of finding food. But for a modern professional, your DMN is highly trained on threat detection and optimization.
So the moment you stop actively working, your brain immediately starts scanning your career, your finances, your relationships for potential threats.
It turns relaxation into a vulnerability.
Wow. It literally won't let you rest.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this constant DMN-driven mental distraction creates a very dangerous illusion. Because our internal threat detection system is firing all the time, we start to genuinely believe that life is attacking us.
We feel like the world is chaotic and overwhelming and just deeply antagonistic.
Right. But as the man in the foundational story discovered when he finally sat alone at night, life wasn't attacking him at all. His external environment was perfectly safe.
It was his own unmanaged cognitive load that was attacking him.
Exactly.
It's the ultimate internal misdirection. The external world is just happening. The internal world is where the assault is actually taking place.
Because the brain doesn't know the difference between a physical predator and a looming deadline. It just pumps out cortisol either way.
It just feels the stress. And because the default mode network defaults to anxiety for high performers, we can't just passively hope to feel peaceful. We need a way to manually override that system.
We need an antidote.
Right. Which brings us to the practical application. We've diagnosed the problem as chronic mental absence and the arrival fallacy. Now we need to extract the 3 specific actionable ways to neurologically anchor ourselves in the present.
So let's look at the first practice, the discipline of absolute silence.
The premise here traces back to a pivotal night for the man in our story, right?
Yeah. He couldn't sleep. His mind was racing. But instead of pacing or turning on the television or scrolling through his phone, he sat alone in absolute silence.
No input, no music, no distractions whatsoever.
Nothing.
Which sounds like a mild form of torture for anyone conditioned to the modern world. I mean, it goes against everything we are wired to do. When we feel anxious, we reach for input, a podcast, a news feed, a social media scroll to drown out the anxiety.
We do, but that intentional removal of external stimuli is the necessary first step to separating your thoughts from your reality.
How so?
Think of it like running a diagnostic test on a computer by booting it up in safe mode.
Oh, I like that.
When you boot in safe mode, you shut down all the third-party applications, the background processes, the external software. You are stripping away all the noise so you can actually see how the baseline operating system is functioning.
That is a brilliant analogy. You are shutting down the external inputs so you can observe the raw data of your own mind.
Exactly. When you strip away the noise of the world, you can clearly hear the noise of your own mind.
Which is probably terrifying at first.
Oh, initially, it might absolutely spike your anxiety because you are going through sensory withdrawal. Your dopamine receptors are screaming for distraction.
Right.
But if you hold that silence, the brain eventually downregulates. You start to observe your thoughts rather than being possessed by them. You realize, oh, these are just mental projections. They are not absolute truths. They are not happening right now.
You realize the threat isn't in the room with you.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is practice number 1. Rebooting in safe mode through absolute silence, pushing past that initial discomfort. The second practice for staying present daily is releasing the burden of the future. The framework offers this incredibly liberating permission slip for overwhelmed professionals. You do not need to control your entire future tonight.
That is so powerful.
You do not need to solve every problem today.
And this raises a really important question about how we fundamentally define strength in the corporate and professional world.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, we almost universally equate strength with foresight. Having everything perfectly mapped out, having contingencies for every possible disaster, and carrying the weight of the next 5 years on our shoulders, we think worrying is a form of responsible control.
Right. Well, if I'm not stressing about it, I'm being negligent.
Exactly. But this framework redefines that entirely. It suggests that carrying tomorrow's problems today isn't strength. It's actually a massive vulnerability.
A vulnerability because of cognitive load.
Yes, because of cognitive load theory. You only have a finite amount of psychological bandwidth on any given day. When you import the potential problems of next week, next month, and next year into today, you crash your own system.
You just run out of RAM.
Right. You don't have the bandwidth to process a 5-year timeline all at once. The framework argues that the truly strongest people are not those with perfect, highly controlled lives.
Okay, who are they then?
The strongest people are those who learn how to sit calmly inside the present moment, even during chaos, uncertainty, or pain.
Wow. So strength isn't having the perfect umbrella to prevent the storm. It's the ability to stand still in the rain without having a panic attack.
Precisely. Because when you fully enter the present moment, you strip fear of its fuel. Fear requires a future timeline to exist.
Because anxiety is almost always about what might happen.
Exactly. If you pull your focus entirely into the micro-reality of right now, the overthinking starves. Life becomes tangible again. You realize that whatever is physically happening in this exact isolated second, you can actually handle it.
You don't have to carry tomorrow's burdens with today's strength. You only need enough strength for right now.
Which is so much more manageable.
That shift in perspective changes everything about how you manage stress. Okay, so we have booting into safe mode with absolute silence, and we have managing our cognitive load by releasing the burden of the future.
Right.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means we need a way to actually execute this when the pressure is high.
Because simply telling yourself to release the future is nearly impossible if your nervous system is in a state of overdrive.
Oh, totally. You can't outthink an overthinking brain.
Yeah.
You need a physical circuit breaker to actually pull your neurochemistry out of that future state.
Which is where the third practice comes in, the cinematic grounding exercise.
Yes, let's break this down.
This is where we move from philosophy to physiology. Grounding exercises force the brain into bottom-up processing. When you are worrying about the future, you are doing top-down processing, meaning your thoughts are generating a physical stress response.
So it starts in the mind and hits the body.
Right. Grounding forces your brain to pay attention to your raw physical senses first, which is bottom-up. This sends a signal upward to the amygdala that you are currently safe, physically inhibiting the fear response.
I want you, the listener, to test this neurological experiment with us right now. I mean, unless you are actively operating heavy machinery or navigating traffic, I want you to apply this physical circuit breaker.
It only takes a second.
Shift your attention completely away from your thoughts and focus entirely on your physical body. Take one deep, deliberate breath, not a breath to prepare for your next meeting.
Not a breath to recover from this morning.
Just this one. Notice the air. Feel your heartbeat for just a single second. Pay attention to the physical sensation of your feet on the floor or the chair supporting you. Listen to the hum of the room around you.
That immediate return to the physical reality of the present is the circuit breaker. It interrupts the default mode network.
It pulls you out of the abstract future and drops you into the concrete present.
Because life is not happening in your mental replays of yesterday's mistakes.
No. And it is not happening in your catastrophic projections of tomorrow's challenges. It is happening right here, in this physical sensation. in this second.
It is incredibly simple, but as you know, simple does not mean easy.
Oh, absolutely not.
When you have a demanding career, a family, and a life pulling your attention in 1,000 directions, your brain will constantly try to drift back to the map instead of looking at the road.
It's a constant battle.
But returning to the ultimate realization we've been unpacking today, life was never against you. You were simply absent from it.
You were physically present but mentally logged out.
And you cannot experience a peaceful mind or build a resilient career or find real satisfaction in broad, sweeping future timelines. Those things do not exist in the future.
They are built one present moment at a time.
The practice is simply catching yourself, drifting into the future, hitting that circuit breaker, and coming back to the room again and again.
It's an ongoing practice, not a permanent destination. The arrival fallacy tells us that peace is waiting for us at the end of a 5-year plan or after the next promotion.
But it's not.
Right. The architecture of presence proves that peace is hidden inside this exact moment if you have the discipline to actually inhabit it. The moment you truly learn to leverage the present is the moment you finally begin to live, rather than just prepare to live.
As we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on the psychology we've explored today.
Let's hear it.
If the present moment is the only place where you actually physically exist, and the future is just an unwritten projection, what version of yourself are you actively starving by constantly feeding all of your attention to a future that hasn't even happened yet?
Wow, that is a phenomenal question. Starving the present self to feed a phantom future. That's a concept that completely reevaluates how we spend our mental energy.
It really is.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. If this conversation shifted something for you, if it made you realize how much of your life you've been spending staring at the map instead of driving the car, we want you to share it.
Send it to someone who needs it.
Send it to a colleague, a friend, or someone in your network who is constantly running on that treadmill of later and desperately needs a reminder to return to right now.
Because the architecture of your life might be perfectly fine.
You don't need to tear down the walls. You don't need to blow up your career or rebuild your foundation. You just need to realize that the danger isn't real. The alarm system in your mind is just glitching, and it's finally time to sit down in the living room and actually be home.